Canada has done it again. And honestly, these regular immigration announcements are becoming annoying. Really. Just announce all your announcements at once. Make me sleep. To be frank, we have been waiting for the promised immigration announcement that was supposed to be coming November 1st. But alas, they could not wait. So on October 24th, Canada served us a hot pot of egusi soup. Steaming hot. Apologies if you are not a Nigerian. Go and Google what egusi soup is. They have been serving it to us over the last year anyway, so we are not so surprised again. Orishirishi policy changes. Anyway, when I tuned into the broadcast and I saw the Canada Prime Minister, I sat up because it had to be serious for the Prime Minister himself to be involved in making this announcement. So let's get into it. What's going on again with Canada immigration? And what does this mean for those of you that are hoping to immigrate to Canada, or even those that are already here in Canada on a temporary visa? Let's talk about what the announcements were, the implications of it, and how these changes could affect you. So Canada just shook up the immigration scene once again with a major announcement. And this isn't just any update because, like I said earlier, the Prime Minister himself made an appearance, which shows how seriously the government is taking this. They could not even wait till November 1st when we are expecting this update. So whether you are an international student, the spouse of an international student, a work permit holder, an aspiring work permit holder, or someone who is trying to get Canada permanent residency or PR, this is important for you. This is the Prime Minister starting the announcement here, talking about the importance of immigration to Canada.
Immigration is vital to our future. And as a federal government, we have to make sure that that pride, that faith in immigration is not undermined.
Now, what I want to say now is completely my opinion. No, it's my opinion. But if you watch the actual announcement on CPAC, which I'm going to be putting up throughout this video anyway, you can hear the political undertone. They could not disguise it at all. The Prime Minister spent more time talking about his political opponent when he was being questioned than actually agreeing to the fact that they have somehow totally screwed up immigration. Of course, some things have happened behind the scene, right? But first, let's listen to the Immigration Minister.
Indeed, immigration is indispensable, has been indispensable to the creation and the identity of this country, indispensable to its future. As mentioned in our recent history, it was key to increasing our gross domestic product.
Despite the fact that immigration is important in Canada, behind the scenes, Canada is facing growing public concern about its immigration levels, especially with housing shortages and economic challenges. It also suggests that the government might be feeling the heat from the public and upcoming elections. They are trying to find a way to please both sides. That's those who want fewer newcomers and those who recognize the benefits of immigration. First of all, housing is a massive concern. The government knows that Canada is facing a housing crisis, and many people are blaming immigration for making it worse. Just last year, there were reports about housing shortages, and with so many newcomers arriving, it's easy to see how the pressure has built up. Inflation has also been on the rise in Canada, and this has worried everyone. A poll was taken recently, and about 58% of Canadians believe that immigration numbers were just too high, which is a significant increase over the past 2 years. Many are worried about how the government is managing these newcomers and the strain on housing and public services. New immigrants were pointed to as the scapegoats and the ones that are causing these issues in Canada. These sentiments, I believe, have put pressure on Prime Minister Trudeau as he seeks re-election because the Liberals are actually falling out of favor with Canadians. Immigration has become a key topic with the opposition party, using it to challenge the Prime Minister's policies, particularly given the public's growing discontent with how the immigration system is being managed. I believe that this political pressure is what is shaping the current debate around Canada's immigration future. So the government has announced a plan that will pause population growth in the short term to achieve a well-managed, sustainable growth in the long term.
I'll cut straight to the chase when it comes to permanent immigration targets. This plan is probably the first of its kind so far as it integrates and responds to a lot of criticisms that we've received in the past. That this plan that we table as a statutory matter on November 1st only talks about permanent residency. This plan this year gives a better snapshot for people to look at total population growth and the growth of temporary residents, as well as the measures that we're putting into place to reduce those populations over the next few years. When it comes to Canada's permanent immigration targets and aligning them to our economic needs, I'm here to announce and confirm that the current plan reduces next year's projections from 500,000 permanent residents to 395,000, a net reduction of 105,000 permanent residents immediately in 2025. After that, in 2026, a progression down to 380 to stabilize the numbers at 365 in 2027.
They will do this by reducing the number of permanent resident admissions by a whopping 105,000 in 2025. That is a big shift from what they previously planned. Because it wasn't long ago that Minister Miller announced the new higher immigration levels for 2024 to 2026. And now those same levels are being cut short by 20%. Okay, my blood is too hot. Let's break it down step by step. The first thing I want you to know is that for the first time ever, the levels plan includes controlled targets for temporary residents, specifically international students and foreign workers, as well as for permanent residents. Usually, these immigration level plans will just target permanent residents. But I guess that's another thing that has changed. The new immigration plans will reduce immigration by 105,000 people in 2025 compared to what was originally expected. It will focus more on people that are already living in Canada. By 2025, over 40% of permanent residents will be those who are already here as temporary residents.
Is the need to focus on people that are already here. It means that according and consistent with our plan, over 40% of permanent residents will come from the temporary residents that are already in Canada. These people are a young labor pool. They're skilled. They're here. They've begun their process of integration. And it doesn't place the additional demands on the housing, healthcare, and social services that we see with someone that comes directly from another country.
In other words, the government is focusing on transitioning those that are already here, like international students and workers, into permanent residency. If you're in that boat, this could be an opportunity. And I have always been saying it forever, that Canada should look to people that are already in the country waiting to become permanent residents. The thing is in their Sokoto, and they are looking for it in Sokoto. So this is some good news, in my opinion, especially since studies show that people with experience in Canada tend to do well in the long term. These are skilled and educated people who are already here and will not cause further strain on housing or put too much pressure on social services, as echoed by the Prime Minister here.
It makes sense. We have a large pool. There are ways to integrate that highly talented pool into the permanent residency population.
Furthermore, changes will be made to immigration programs to make it easier for workers already in Canada to become permanent residents, especially in areas like healthcare and trades, where we need workers the most. By 2027, around 62% of all new permanent residents will come through these economic immigration programs in important fields like health and trades. So, in summary, permanent residence numbers will be reduced from 500,000 to 395,000 in 2025 across all classes of economic immigration, and it will reduce to 380,000 in 2026 and 365,000 in 2027. And guys, if you compare it to the numbers that were announced earlier by the immigration number, you will see that these are really massive cuts. Now, let's talk about temporary residents. Remember that in September, Canada announced some reduction measures for temporary residents. So currently, in specific terms, we will see Canada's temporary population decline to about 445,901 in 2025, 445,662 in 2026, followed by a modest increase of 17,439 in 2027.
Are expected to result in a reduction of Canada's temporary resident population of 445,000 in 2025, an additional 445,000 in 2026, and perhaps a modest increase of 17 in 2027. Those are the numbers that we are factoring in as we look at the impact on the need to build housing units, but also the ones we look at when we look at the overall mix and the plan to reduce the temporary resident population from 7 to 5%.
For those on or that are considering the temporary foreign worker program, note that the government is slashing the number of temporary workers allowed into the country, especially for low-wage jobs. And on top of that, wages for high-wage jobs will rise by 20% for you to qualify. I know this all sounds complicated and high-handed, but I just hope that you are getting it. But before we go on, I want to do a quick shout-out to the amazing members of this channel. Thank you so much for your support. If you're new here, consider joining the membership. We've got tons of valuable members-only content about Canada immigration that are coming up. So click the join button just below to join. Moving on. So the government says that they are listening to Canadians.
It reflects the fact that we have and we will continue to listen to Canadians. That's something that's important because the people standing behind me today are people that have been speaking to their constituents, have been speaking to economists, have been speaking to universities and institutions, and listening to their own families. And they've said consistently that while we are still and continue to be an open country, that volume that we have put forward is something that is of concern. And indeed, the latest Environics poll says as much.
People want more control over immigration numbers, especially with concerns about whether the country can even sustain more people given the housing crisis and pressures on public services. This announcement is the government's way of showing that they are actually taking these concerns seriously. But at the same time, it's worth noting that not all of Canada's issues can be blamed on immigration. Yes, immigration has contributed to housing shortages, but it's not the sole reason. From my perspective, it's important to recognize that while immigration plays a role in some of these challenges, it's unfair to place the entire blame entirely on newcomers. Canada's economy has benefited from immigration for decades. Cutting back too much could also lead to a shortage of skilled workers, which could slow economic growth in the long term. So honestly, I am still digesting this news, and I hope that these new plans will actually help the issues in the country, like housing, jobs, and inflation. We will wait and see. If you're an international student, a work permit holder, or someone who is hoping to apply for permanent residence, now is the time to be proactive. But proactive, Bao, you ask, proactive in every way. With these changes, things could get a bit tougher to get into Canada. But for students and workers, there's also the opportunity since the government is prioritizing those that are already here in Canada. So make sure you know your options and that you continue to stay informed. Stay tuned to this channel and I will keep you updated on the latest immigration news and how you can navigate any changes. In the meantime, learn how to create your own Express Entry profile by watching this video next. Make sure you take care and I'll see you in the next one.